All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Purple Podcast. This is episode number 44 now. This is going to be our The Last of Us episode 8 recap and review. So coming to the end, guys, this episode was titled When We Are in Need. And this was a doozy of one of the best ones of the series so far. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Cannot wait to dive into this one with you guys. Today we are currently sitting on a Wednesday, so it's hump day. Happy hump day, guys. It's early in the morning here, so going to be getting it out to you relatively early today. Everything got pushed back a little bit just in terms of, or due to the announcement of the other podcast. So if you hadn't heard about that yet, that would be the Purple Sports Podcast as well as the Purple TV and Film Podcast. So just a lot of kind of administrative work with that as well in terms of the socials and everything that went into that. So yeah, make sure to show those accounts some love. Go give them a follow and begin following those podcasts as well. As I mentioned on, I guess, the last Purple podcast, the quick little announcement there, excuse me, we're going to continue doing The Last of Us on the Purple podcast, or at least this season. Yeah, definitely this season, but anything TV and film related going forward will then be on the Purple TV and Film podcast, so pretty straightforward and easy to understand how that's going to work there. But we're going to keep it clean, keep it in the same place, finish up The Last of Us on the Purple podcast for this season here. But a little intro into my viewing experience even for this week's episode. As I mentioned on another podcast as well, is I did not have power from Friday at 3 p.m. until very near the time of airtime for the episode. So went over to a friend's or a few friends' place, and me and Dana, we went over there, got a little cleaned up because shower in the dark's a little difficult, and the hot water wasn't going to be fully there. But ended up watching the episode with some friends. Cool little note for them. Shout out to them for hosting for one thing, allowing us to do that, but also when the intro of the show came on, I was thinking to myself, are they going to let it run all the way through? And respect to them, yes, they did let it run through. So maybe it's just something about HBO intros. Maybe it's this one. It just sets the tone, gets you ready for the episode, and gets you ready to rock. So wanted to definitely note that here. But let's hop into the recap of the episode. Like I said, this one was a blast, very eerie, creepy episode, but an iconic part of the video game that I recall, and just overall really enjoyed how they brought it to television as well. But the first thing we see in this episode is basically this resort scenery. We hear a man talking as if he's reading a passage from the Bible. We end up cutting into this sort of town hall is what I'm going to be referring to it as, where we see all these or this community sitting. There's a man preaching, saying this or reciting this passage from the Bible. And this whole scene just kind of sets up the dynamic of this community. So this guy who is reading the passage is the leader. He is the father. This is David, who we soon come to know, played by Scott Shepherd. But he's reading this passage. We soon find out that it is a funeral. We see these two at a table. This little girl is crying. She's with her, you would presume her mother. But David comes up to her, talks to her, just a little bit about the passage, a little bit about, having hope, that kind of deal, and everything like that. Says he's been reading this passage, too often lately, meaning that this community has experienced some hardships and have lost a lot of people relatively recently. And I think just as a whole, this scene definitely is meant to set up the dynamic of this community. So you see everyone, this looks like a ragtag group of people. They are beat up. It does look like they've been going through some hardships. David is set up as the leader. But following this short conversation with the girl, she asks David, when can we bury him? So this is her father who has passed. This is who the funeral is for. In this moment, once she asks David this, David looks over to another man. We don't know his name yet. We end up finding out that his name is James. kind of setting up his second-hand man. But as he looks over at James, James looks at him and quickly looks away. So what does this look mean? David responds to the girl, says, "The ground is too cold to dig. We'll bury him in the spring." And the weight that this line holds as you get further into the episode is a big one. So we'll pay that off in a little bit here. But we flash to where we are outside of this town hall. David is, shaking hands, doing that preacher thing, and James ends up coming out. They have a conversation, furthering that theme, or not necessarily that theme, but the understanding that food is scarce. There's not a lot left. We only have a week's worth of rations essentially for everyone right now, and hunting's been tough. They said someone said they spotted a deer out this way. James says, people see what they want to see, essentially saying we could have made that shit up because we're just all starving here and we can't find any food. As James is beginning to walk away, David asks James, or says to James, "I sense doubt in there." And James says, "It's been a rough 6 months for everyone, but they still believe in you." And this is where this power dynamic is really solidified here, where James says, "No, not from them, from you. I need to know that you're with me," essentially is the point of this scene, that conversation where James says he is, and then they decide that they're going to go hunting. Cutting to our next scene here, we see Joel and Ellie. Joel is still in an incapacitated state where he, is not able to get up. He is looking really, really rough, maybe as rough as he has looked since being stabbed. Ellie looks at his wound that she had previously sewn up with some kind of, yarn in the previous episode, and it looks incredibly infected. It does not look like it's getting better at all. So how much longer can Joel go in this state without any kind of proper medical attention? Not sure, but something's messed up. Ellie ends up giving him a little bit of food, but obviously we see that food's very scarce for them as well. I don't know what they're eating. It looked like some kind of piece of jerky the size of a quarter, and she scrounges it up. She puts it back and then sets a little piece down for Joel, says, "I'm going to go look for some, or I'm going to head out." Joel looks for some food is essentially what she's doing. We see her go out into the wilderness, and a little homage to the video game here as she's hunting. We see that bunny. I was just waiting for that bunny to get shot, but Ellie's clumsy ass fumbles the bag there, trips over a stick as she. Why are you running after a bunny as well? I feel like a bunny's definitely going to hear that and scatter away. So probably be a little more cautious and careful if you're hunting a bunny. But anyways, the bunny survives in this one. Shout out the bunny. In the video game, it doesn't play out that way. It gets an arrow straight through the I guess its body. So well done, bunny, in this one. You survived another day. But lucky Ellie, she ends up seeing a deer, and this time I guess she's maybe learned from her mistakes with the bunny, and gets into a shooting position, takes off her glove, and is true with her shot. Hits the deer, runs away, and next thing we see is not Ellie approaching the deer or tracking down the deer. We see these blood marks in the snow, but we see both David and James. And something I forgot to mention when I first introduced, I guess, James, cool fact about him is he's actually the guy that voiced Joel in the video game. So cool that he was able to find a role in this depiction of something that he had a part in the original form of content. But David and James have approached this deer. They say, the person who shot it's not that far away. Let's get it out of here. And all too soon, you hear a stick click. David gives a quick little glance back, but before he can fully turn around, we hear Ellie holding these guys up. This first encounter, this is a theme that we had discussed. I guess it was not last episode, but the episode prior, in terms of, Marlon and Florence, that kind of hold up scene with Joel and Ellie. And then also when Tommy's group rolls up on them. So Maria, as they roll up on Ellie and Joel. All of these first encounters in this world are going to be really, really, there's going to be a lot of friction. People do not trust each other, and you always have to play it incredibly, incredibly cautiously. So this is what we see here as well. And this is just another, it's a contributing factor to the gray of this world, and that you never know who's going to be good. You never know who's going to be bad. People can appear one way and be the other. This whole scene felt really forced from Ellie, and I think it's supposed to, just even the way that she's speaking. I don't think this is like Bella Ramsey being a bad actor by any ways, but it's just that Ellie is forced. She hasn't done this before, so she says, "I'll put one right between your eyes if you move. Put the guns down." She does a good job with it. She's doing all the right moves. She's telling them, or they say, like, "Oh, we're friends." David's trying to calm down the situation. This is my friend James. We're with a larger community with children. We're very hungry. And Ellie says, "I'm from a large community as well, also hungry." So she's playing it well. She's not giving away her hand until James mentions the word medicine. And that hits home pretty hard. And Ellie immediately, you can't show your hand too early, Ellie, and she shows her hand fully outright here. Says, "Medicine?" Well, she says medicine. Yeah, she asks if they have medicine when he is offering, boots, anything like that. But David said, "Yeah, we do," and has James go get it. Says, "Hey, go back to the community, get 2 vials of penicillin and a syringe." James looks at him in this funny way, and this is something that we see throughout this episode here, where James just is not fully on board with David's decisions. So it makes you question immediately what David's motivation is, because James obviously is like, why would we give this to her? It doesn't make sense for us to do that. But for whatever reason, David is looking to help her out, bring this medicine. So you immediately are questioning David's motivation. What is this? What is his point in helping this girl out? But I thought this was a neat little parallel to Kathleen and Perry as well. Calling back to that duo where Perry was, I guess he wasn't necessarily like blindlessly following Kathleen, but he definitely wasn't making the decisions for himself. He even questions her at some point. He's like, do we really need to be spending all these forces looking for Henry and Sam? She's like, no, this is my number one priority. So her motivations are far more clear and straightforward. And I think that's maybe where her character, it's not that she necessarily lacked, but that was her one thing. Like she was after Henry and Sam. She was incredibly one-minded about it. This guy David, we don't know what his deal is yet. And something about this world, and something about the way that religious individuals have been depicted in television shows as well. It's like, I don't fucking like this guy. He's a weirdo. There's something about the way he's discussing, or just the way he talks, the way he carries himself, his whole demeanor. Something's just a little wrong. He's a nice guy. He seems like a nice enough guy on, first glance here and discussing. He's definitely playing it nice, at least, and that's that gray we see. So, this guy, there's nothing that he's done that makes us believe he's necessarily a bad guy yet, but something just feels a little icky about the guy, and maybe it's the religious thing, maybe it's this whole cultish feeling, maybe it's just the general depiction of that community and how downtrodden they looked, that there's just something not quite right about this guy right now. But, he's given us nothing really to do that aside from, his whole demeanor and the way he's being acted. So this is a credit to Scott Shepherd, because I think he did like a really, really, really great job about this, and we'll discuss that further in detail as we get through this. But James does go to get the medicine. David says to Ellie, it's going to be a little while before he's back. Let's, I got some oil. We can start a fire and, take shelter until he gets back. This next scene here, we do see that Ellie and David are in this cabin. David's making some small talk, trying to find out a little bit about Ellie, but she's not giving anything up here. She's playing it pretty close to the chest. So parallel with her and Joel here as well, where it's like, she's not giving an inch. But we do end up hearing a little bit about David. He says that, I actually wasn't a teacher when I wasn't a preacher when this all began. It took for the apocalypse for me to find God. Because Ellie says, like, what, are you, some cult leader or something like that? He's like, you kind of got me there. I am a preacher. It's like, you still believe in all this after the apocalypse? And he says he's found God after the apocalypse. Another ode to the video game. David says that he is from the Pittsburgh QZ when it fell out in 2017. We headed out this way and they needed a leader. I became the leader. I was, voted as the leader. I not necessarily voted, but I was made the leader by the people. But Pittsburgh, the video game, that's actually originally where the events of Kansas City occurred from this TV show. So everything that happened in Kansas City in this show actually happened in Pittsburgh in the original video game there. So a nice little ode, or just kind of mention of a place where something occurred in the video game that was different in this TV show here. But ends up, we get to this discussion. Ellie says something about, so you're pretty lucky to make it all the way out here, or, just made it out here on luck. And David Flip says, no, I don't think so. I think everything happens for a reason. And this is one of the, best parts of the whole entire episode, in my opinion, just this discussion, the way things get flipped on their head. But he's telling her about it. He says, hey, yeah, I think everything happens for a reason. I can prove it to you. So a few days ago, we sent out some men. We sent out 4 men and only 3 returned. A little girl lost her father. And I think this is a really, really good depiction of the gray as well here, because this flips things on our heads, as we get to this and understand that he knows who she is. He knows what happened. He says, yeah, funny enough, this crazy man killed him, and he was traveling with a little girl. And then he says, see, everything happens for a reason. There's this nice, really close-up shot of Scott Shepherd's face as this news breaks, as it reveals. Gives you that really eerie, creepy feeling, and it's like, okay, yep, I don't like this guy, and it was valid. A certified creep. You see it close up on him. He flips this on her head. He knows who you are, Ellie. You didn't fool him at all with your lies, even though you played it right. You did play it right, but he knew it from the get-go, or had an idea of who you were. He says, see, everything happens for a reason. But then he says to James, who has appeared, he says, lower the gun, James. And bad on Ellie for this. It's like, what did you think was going to happen when he returned? You think he was just going to come back? I mean, honestly, he should have came back with more people. But I guess he didn't want to disobey David. There's some kind of that power dynamic, so they follow him. He's following him. But he comes back. He has brought the medicine. So David says, lower the gun. Did you bring the medicine? And James is like, I mean, yeah, but are we really going to give it to her? He's like, yep. Gives it to him. And Ellie runs away. He lets her go as well. But getting back to the gray, Joel did kill a father. And it's part of this world. It's part of the cruelness of this world, but it is what occurs in this world. It's kill or be killed sometimes. So Joel was doing it to protect Ellie, defend himself as well. But at the end of the day, a girl did lose her father as well. So there's 2 sides to every story, and I think that's a really good and accurate depiction of it. I didn't know where it was going, but I was really happy with how that scene played out, how it was shown, how it was discussed, and how, David finally flips it on her, having known basically who she is the whole time and understanding what's going on here. But lets Ellie go, and you question again. You get this question of what is David's motivation? He could have easily just taken her there, but he didn't. And James once again is giving that backlash. It's like, dude, what's going on? Like, why are we doing this? What's your motivation? And at the end of it, David just doesn't even answer him. He holds the weight. He's the leader. He's the guy. But Ellie heads back to Joel, does shoot him up with the penicillin. Do we question her nurse techniques? Is she really going to be able to get this right and do it correctly? Does she know the correct amount of dosage? I guess anything's going to help at this point, and nothing's going to hurt him, so you got to try something. Is she injecting, air bubbles into his blood? He's going to have a stroke and die. I don't know. But this is a TV show. That's not where we dive into those things. You really want a depiction like that, then, watch something else. But anyways, next scene we see here is this dinner town hall scene. Well, the first thing that we see is actually the cooks in this back area. A man walks in with a bunch of meat. Whew. And she says, "What is it?" He waits a second and says, "Venison." And then the really just horrid aspect of this is that the person that asked what it is and the cook in the kitchen is the, I guess, presumed wife and mother of the daughter. Her husband was the one that was killed. And the first inkling here, and, calling back to where David has that eye contact with James when mentioning burying the body, we immediately come into question. Well, in this meat, I think we got a good idea what this is. And woof, that kind of flips things on its head. Food's scarce. You got to do what you got to do. But these people are eating people. That's what it comes to. And, she's the one who's throwing her husband's, I would presume her husband, because we do find out that there are more bodies, but her husband's body into some fucking stew to cook. Oh God, what an interesting thing to, interesting. That's so horrible that I said it that way, but just what a, oh gosh, icky feeling that gives you. But man, it's kind of this world. It is what it is, and I think it is really impactful and powerful in that same way. But we get back to the town hall. David announces as he comes back in with that deer, says, "Woof, big one." No one says a fucking word. These people, man. And something immediately feels really, really wrong when he walks into this scene. The tides are turning. We've had that reveal that he, understands who Ellie is. So there's a bit of malice in there. There's a bit of riff. There's something that's not quite right, and it's coming further to light. It's trying to, breach the surface here. But he's like, you guys probably heard it now through the movers. We did find the person who killed, I can't recall his name at this point. We're going to send out a party in the morning. We'll get the girl. She didn't kill anyone. But the daughter yells out, "Kill them. Kill them both." No one else says a word. She doesn't say another word herself, but David approaches her, and in the first just blatantly cruel act of the episode from him, confirming and breaching the surface, he backhands her square in the face. Oh my God. Like, yep, well, we see what kind of leader you are now. You rule by fear. And you demand respect from these people, and that's probably why no one else here says a word. You literally, throughout this whole episode, don't hear the other townspeople really speak, and all contributes to this terrifying ruler dynamic that David imparts on them. But next, he sits down. They're served food, and they say a prayer. So everyone has to sit down, say a prayer before they eat. As it concludes, everyone starts clanking their forks, and the sounds of this scene are just, once again, so icky and gross. Thinking and knowing that this is human. They're all in this room eating human, and they're so famished and starved that they're just downing this thing. And they don't all know, of course, but those that do know, there's an interesting dynamic there because we see James, he understands that this is a human, and he is slow to take his first bite, and when he does, kind of winces away. But we cut back to David in this really, this guy's a weirdo, a creep. He watches the daughter take her first bite. She's a little shy about it at first as well, but she takes her first bite. Does she know? That's an interesting question. Does she have some kind of idea that is she seeing things? Is she seeing through the veil? I don't know. I would doubt it, but man, what's she gonna do? Defy David again? I don't think so. But David watches her take the first bite, and when he sees her take her first bite, I guess he's contented by it and goes happily to his meal where he has, the largest portion of anyone in the room, and he's eating it. Happy go jolly, whatever, phrase, whatever saying you want to say for someone who's just, happy as hell to be eating this, a jolly old boy eating some human, and he knows it full right that that's what it is. We flash to the next day here, where we see Joel and Ellie again. It appears that Joel's wound is getting maybe a little bit better. Here. 1 second. Ellie puts in some more penicillin, and she goes out, just kind of looking around. She's feeding the horse and hears people approaching. So the search party is arriving. And we cut to a scene of the search party and them talking about this girl. And once again, we get this dynamic of James just questioning what they're doing, what David wants from this, what is his motivation. He's like, I'm not wanting to question your sense of, I guess, I can't remember what the word is, but your sense of forgiveness, your sense of morality. But we can just let this girl go. If we don't have to save her or take her back to the community, if we take her back, it's just going to be another mouth to feed that we just don't have the food for. We're eating fucking people. So you want to bring this other girl back. But if I leave her out there, she'll die. And James says, maybe it's God's will that she dies. Immediately, once again, we feel this figure of who David is, who and what he means to the people. He turns around, stops, doesn't say a word, just looks at James. And he immediately is like, oh, fuck, I shouldn't have said that. Gives him his little, that little dog look where they know that they've done something bad, and just kind of shuts his head down. So we feel this, following of David. He does it by fear and demands respect from his people. David doesn't he doesn't give him the backhand, but, a look is all that he needs there. Ellie decides, as she sees these people approaching, she tries to get Joel up, but there's no use in it, which is kind of odd because at some point he does, but I guess he's forced to do it at that point. But you would feel that he was forced at this point as well. But anyways, Ellie decides that she's going to impart a distraction. Not the best decision making in terms of her distraction. She just goes out on a horse, yells at them, shoots a pistol twice, misses both shots, and begins to ride away. What was her plan? I get that you're trying to pull them away from Joel, but they know he's there, so I don't think that necessarily does it. I guess if they really wanted you, but you're also on a horse, so you can easily outride where these people are and run away from them. So you're just going to stay within walk or a close distance on a horse and just keep toying them away. And what's the end goal there? She's forced to this decision by necessity. It is not necessarily the most thoroughly thought out plan, which makes sense, plays well, but something I definitely thought about there. But unfortunately, guys, we see the end of a horse in this show. There's a couple things that or animals that really suck seeing die. That's horses, that's dogs, and we get a horse death here. They don't make it so bad. It's a clean shot. It's dead in one shot. But Ellie is thrown from the horse. James is the one who has made this shot. He approaches Ellie, who is laying on the ground helpless, and another one of the search party individuals comes over to him and shares the sentiment that James has basically had this whole time. And they're like, what are we doing? Why are we going to take this girl? What is your motivation? He says, do it. And he's fully ready to do it. But I guess he's not the one that's going to be pulling the trigger. He's trying to get it done. He's trying to have this, someone else take the fall for doing it, but to do his act in, killing her. But obviously David isn't going to allow this to happen. As he approaches and walks up, he sees them about to do this and stops them from doing so. Just gives you or lends the question to why hasn't this group rebelled yet? Considering there are multiples of them that don't seem to share in David's ideas. Maybe that riff is just beginning as they've had a really tough few winters, but I would imagine, at some point, if he doesn't meet the end that he does, oh my God, if he doesn't meet the end that he does meet in this episode, then, maybe at some point in time the group does end up rebelling against him. But we cut away from that. David walks away with Ellie in arms. He says, if you're so eager for justice, bring it about, or whatever. He says some kind of deliver it. That's what he is, very preacherish. But we see this search for Joel. An individual does go into the correct building, begins walking about. Joel does hear this, so stirs it in him to, obviously do something. But we don't see this yet. We just see Joel hearing that there is someone in this building, beginning to, move things around. Next thing we see is this man walking down into the basement. We see Joel's bed, that blood spot on it, or that little mattress that's there. Joel is not there, so guess what's going to happen to this cat? As he continues down, we get this kind of close-up, narrow angle from his POV, which I think is good because it allows us to believe that Joel is hidden somewhere out of sight. So he doesn't see them. He's looking around. He has his narrow vision. There's not much peripheral in terms of, what you're going to see through the camera angle there. But Joel, I watched it back a couple times just to see where he was hitting or hiding. The only thing that I could really gather would have to be that water heater that's right there. But Joel does get this guy, stabs him square in the neck with the, I forgot to mention that, but Ellie, provided him a knife, saying like, I'm going to lead them away. If anyone comes down there, kill him, essentially. And he does that. He kills him. There's this kind of struggle. He stabs him right here. You would think that Joel would have tried to, take the neck out immediately to not have to have like a physical altercation, but that nonetheless it does happen. You got to imagine the pain that he's feeling in his side as he's wrestling with this guy or holding him tight with all the strength that he has with this knife. But the guy does die. Next thing we see is Ellie captive for the first time here. So David has brought her back to the community. She is in a cage. And Ellie's like, what the fuck am I doing in a cage here? And essentially here, David is laying out a bit of his motivation, not necessarily everything, but we're getting closer to it. It's like it's his idea, it's his plan to allow Ellie to become a part of this community. He wants to have her become one of them. We don't necessarily know why yet, but we do. I look, Walker's in the mirror or in the window. Hey, buddy. But we don't necessarily know fully why yet, but we do understand that he is wanting her to become a part of the community. But right now he's saying that, you're too dangerous. I can't trust you. You've proven that you're a dangerous individual. I'm scared of you. That's where we leave things off as David leaves or walks away, letting her know that, it is my plan to do this, but you need to trust us in order for that to happen. Cut back to this, our search party. We see one of the other individuals of the search party walking into the backyard. He hears a thud, ends up seeing an individual of their party on the ground. He's like, oh, fuck. And very ignorantly walks up to the individual without kind of really looking around, planning for any kind of, or expecting any kind of attack, ambush. Doesn't plan for that. Doesn't look around for it. And Joel, sure enough, gets him with the butt of a gun square in the face. Good. Where we get this really awesome interrogation scene and just all the way around brutal. So we have two people tied up here. Joel stabs this man in the knee. Oh, Joel doesn't give a shit. He is mad. He is angry. He is hurting, but he's going to get this job done, man. He loves Ellie. Stabs this man in the knee, and we get this interesting parallel, as I mentioned a little bit, briefly early, to the Marlon and Florence scene. Very different, but the same kind of dynamic where Joel just needs directions. He has a map. He says, point to me on the directions where this is, and your friend better say the same exact thing when I do. So this is almost identical to the Marlon and Florence scene, but not nearly in the same light or dynamic. Obviously this one is much more, brutal, dangerous. There's violence. These guys, were trying to kill each other. So he ends up providing the first guy that he is talking to provides him the instructions, says, I swear it's here, with the map. Stabs him square in the chest. Joel doesn't give a fuck, dude. Stabs him square in the chest. The other guy's like, what'd you do that for? He told you what you wanted. He's like, I'm not telling you shit, man. He's like, that's okay. I believe him. And kills the other guy out too. Woo, Joel, you badass. And, once again, guys, very gray episode, but there's some gray in this. Joel broke the rules there. If we're looking on a moral standing, he was provided what he wanted. Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's what he had to do. What's he going to do? Just leave these guys here? They're going to die either way. I guess if he leaves them there, if they end up getting out, they're going to come back for him. So no loose ends, like a motherfucker gangster. Joel puts him out. We cut once again over to the second part here of Ellie being held captive. She's looking for a way to escape. Obviously to no avail. She ends up getting towards the front of the brig, the cage that she is in, and goes down and sees something. We don't see what she sees, but she is obviously shook by it. You see this widening of her eyes. Well done, Bella Ramsey, for portraying this. But she backs up and is still, has her eyesight on this as David approaches with some food. He notices where her glance is, looks to his left, and sees the ear there, and he's like, well, you got me. There's no hiding this one. He's like, you're eating people, you sick fuck. Kicks the food away. He's like, for what it's worth, this is just venison. Like, what are you going to do? Chop me up into little pieces too? But, in an absolutely horrible way here, there's some gray to this this scene where what was David supposed to do? Really, really bad to look at it that way. Obviously, you do everything in your power to avoid eating people. But what's he going to do? Let everyone else die? These people were already dead. They have no food. Everyone else is going to starve. It's his job as the leader. And, he's sick and twisted, obviously, because this is what it came to. But he does admit, he's like, you don't think I'm shamed by this? But what else am I supposed to do? So in a very horrible way, I'm not condoning the eating of people. If I'm in the apocalypse, I'm not eating a person. I can't, I'm not eating a person. I can't say for certain, but, I'm not necessarily in that situation. But I'm going to do everything in my goddamn power to never eat an individual. I can guarantee you that. But, this is what it's came to for them. That's the world this is. And, if you let it take you there, that's what you do. I'm not going to do that. Yep. No shot. But we end up getting to this part where we finally realize David's motivation. He's going on this monologue with Ellie. He's like, I know you, You're like me. That's how I know you. So he tells her all these things, these qualities that she has that makes her similar to them. He says, I'm a shepherd surrounded by sheep. All I want is an equal. You're above all that. They would follow us. And that's when things get real creepy. And it's like, oh, man, I always assumed, and, obviously from knowing the video game as well, I assumed that this is his motivation. This is what he wanted. He wants her to be some kind of wife to him. He wants her to be his partner, his leader with him. He's saying that he's, no one around him. He's like, I just want a friend. I want someone who I can, be equal with. He gets closer as he thinks that he is endearing Ellie here, puts his hand on the cage, and then puts it on hers. Ellie begins to, play along, puts her hand on his others. And then, as we, knew this was coming, Ellie's not going to buy this shit. She's not falling for this shit. But how far is she going to take it? That's the question that was more so being asked in my head at this point. But anyways, she breaks his finger. He grabs her by the fucking head and racks her head against the bars twice. She looks up. She has blood down her nose. It's like, what am I going to tell the people now? He's, it's over. It's over. Like this was the point. He laid it on the line. She was either going to abide and play along or continue, or, he was going to win her over and she was actually going to become, his wife. But he put it on the line. She refuses. He's like, yeah, hear what I tell the people now. But she says, Ellie is the little girl that broke your fucking finger. She yells it at him, and she has blood running down her face. Badass as hell. But, not to be outdone, David comes right back, says, how'd you put it? Tiny little pieces? So that's something to think about as we leave that scene. We cut away once again, seeing Joel is approaching our resort here. He has since found the area from the map where it was, following the directions of the now dead individual. He's approaching. He walks up to this, I guess, little cabin, little storage area, breaks into it, sees Ellie's backpack, sees his horse as well, And then, as I mentioned earlier, we see 3 more bodies hanging here. The point of this scene, I don't necessarily know, just more so to show that, like, oh God, yeah, these guys are real bad. They've been eating people for a bit at this point. They got 3 people hung up here. This is nothing new. It's not like one person died, they were really starved here, and this is the first time that they're eating people. It seems like anytime anyone dies, that's fucking food. We're eating that shit. And, is it out of necessity at that point? I guess maybe to some degree, but they're definitely, as I was touching on earlier, they're definitely not doing everything in their power. The first time Ellie goes out for a hunt, she sees a bunny and a deer. These people can't find any food. What are all these people doing? They're just sitting here waiting for someone to die eating people. I think they're getting lazy. I don't know. But they're definitely not doing everything in their power to find food. And, considering there are 3 people hanging and they've just eaten another individual, they've been doing it for a while, guys. I think it's safe to assume that as well. This has been part of the game plan for a bit here. Do they like it? I don't know. How much can we really believe David here? You think it's just like something he enjoys now? It's like, you think it shames me? You think he's just playing that for Ellie to win her over? I don't know. I wouldn't put it past this creep, because he is a creepy fella. Very short-lived, that scene, however, though. We jump back to kind of our final few turn of events in this episode. We see that Ellie is captured for the 3rd time here. Coming down very quickly with the quickness, I would say, is David and James coming down with the keys, and Ellie senses it. She's like, no. And they go in, they grab her, they throw her on the chopping block, says, you had your chance, it's over now. But in the scuffle, Ellie managed to bite David. And before he swings that cleaver down, says, don't do it, I'm infected. And when that line rings out, all stops. David chops right next to her head, leaves the cleaver sitting there. She says, pull up my sleeve, you'll see. They pull it up. They see it. Says, no, this can't be. This isn't possible. And James like, David, look at her. This is real. In this brief discussion or just kind of conversation between David and James, Ellie takes to looking at the cleaver. I noticed this upon second viewing because obviously I see what she does with it. But she's looking over to her right. You see her kind of glancing as they're having this very, very brief conversation here. She grabs it, goes for her, takes her shot. And James catches one straight to the aorta. Oh, cleaver. He backs up against the wall, falls down, blood gushing out, and, Ellie's out. David tries to take some shots at her. Horrible shot, misses all 4 of them. And she's gone. She's ran out. Obviously, James is dead at this point. R.I.P. The OG Joel. Well done in your performance. It was nice, as I mentioned, so we'll touch on it again, to see him be able to have a role and not something that's, very brief, very basic. He mentioned it in that kind of after show thing. I actually had a real kind of part here instead of just being, a clicker that's faceless, essentially. And I think he was pretty good in that role. I liked his dynamic with David throughout. But Ellie escapes. David runs after her. As David gets to the top, a very, similar scene in that of the video game where Ellie ends up throwing this burning log and this room catches on fire. I remember this very vividly. This part of the video game, this room on fire, David looking around for you. As he's looking for her, he's just really laying it on the line. His full-on obsession and craziness and just almost infatuation with Ellie's. You know what? I've decided you do need a father, and I'm going to teach you. So this crazy motherfucker, after he's had an individual killed right next to him, she's bit him. He's got some weird twist where he's keeping her now. He's like, I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to keep you. And it feels real, real creepy, man. Once again, well done to this guy. Well done to Scott Shepherd. He played this role expertly. I think he's been the best villain in this show so far, and one of just the best characters overall. He is creepy. He is scary. So much so that I don't even know how much I'd want to see this guy in real life on the streets. It's I'm questioning who this guy is in real life because he's just a little too good at playing this absolute weirdo creep preacher, man. But he's looking for. We end up having Ellie stab him. She gets, I guess, the upper hand or comes around behind him, stabs him in the side. He throws her to the ground, losing his cleaver as well as, I guess, no, what was I even at there? But he loses his cleaver. Ellie is thrown to the ground. She's trying to crawl. She sees it, starts crawling towards it. He kicks her square in the ribs. And this just, oh, man, it is a horrible scene when you see him crawl on top of her and you know what's coming next. And you're like, please fucking no. Bella Ramsey murders this role between them two. This is just acting at its finest. It's like, oh my God, I buy that this guy is an absolute creep. This is going to be an unspeakable act, obviously. And Ellie, understanding the same exact thing, what's about to happen here, screaming out in just that shrill scream. Oh my God, it is just so disturbing, that part. And he's like, what's the line? He ends up saying something like, don't you get it? I thought you knew by now. The fight is the part that I like, and that's what this whole thing is. This guy is just twisted. He's sick. He's demented. He is a violent individual, and he loves it. He is fucking wrong. And you can tell from, everyone that he is, the people that he has led them astray. They're being led out of fear. He is a demented individual. And, before, and, very fucking thankfully, anything gets further along, Ellie does reach the cleaver. Dumbass just completely neglected it, and I guess he was just lost in his crazy, sick lust, I guess, that he didn't recognize that the cleaver was within reaching distance. This is twice now. He just left his weapon to Ellie's use. But Ellie gets the cleaver, cracks him once, and then, while on the ground, becomes an absolute animal. So this animalistic kill. I counted how many chops she got. She got 21 chops. 21 chops in for my girl Ellie, and good for her. Powerful scene, really strong, and you just felt this overall she couldn't help it. She was absolutely mortified in this moment and gets the upper hand, kills David, 21 chops, 21 Savage Ellie, puts him down. She ends up walking out. And that was a very X-ish scene. If you've seen the movie X, where that old lady stabs a person, it was just like, oh my God, overkill. Stab, 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 stab. Mentioned that on our Purple TV and Film podcast, top 10 2022 movies list. X made it on there. Where did it end up? I don't know. You might have to listen to the episode and check it out. But she ends up leaving the scene, walking out. And this is a major difference between the movie. I think Joel is actually the one that saves her from David. I can't recall fully. I played the game so long ago, but they did mention that Joel is kind of the person who finally saves her, but Ellie did it all on her own here. She walks out. Joel comes up, grabs her from behind, and she freaks out. You could tell she's going to have PTSD from this. I can guarantee you this, guy. But Joel says, hey, it's me. She gives him a hug. And for the first time since 2003, Joel says, it's okay, baby girl. Whew. Strong ass episode. What a baller ass episode. Thoroughly enjoyed that one. Woof! The Last of Us. Let's fucking go. David Scott Shepard, you killed it. I don't want to see you on the street in real life because, man, you freaked me out, man. I don't know if I can trust you in real life either. Something feels wrong. But woof. Concluding thought, guys. Concluding thoughts. What an absolute episode. What a beast of an episode. I loved that. That is easily the best villain that we've seen so far. I loved the complexity to his character. It wasn't that Kathleen single motivated drive. He had weird things about it, and it was just all for personal reasons. I guess Kathleen's were too, but he was sick, demented, twisted, and that's all that you want from a good villain in any kind of episode. Maybe the preacher aspect, the cult aspect of it contributed, because those are always, to me at least, pretty interesting antagonists. But how is Ellie going to be when we pick back up here, guys? That was a heavy episode. She can't be the same, but what's she going to do? Is she going to completely shut it out? Is there going to be any kind of mention of it? What happened in there? Is she ever going to fully let Joel know what happened? I don't know, but the story's going to have to continue, guys. We go on. We're not done yet. Viewing from the trailer, it looks like we're going to finally meet up with Marlene. And this is going to be a wild one. It's going to be a good end to the series, or this season. And I am absolutely ready for it. I cannot wait. I'll be coming back from Chicago that day. So we're going to have the Oscars and the season finale of The Last of Us on Sunday. I cannot wait. It's going to be a blast. Can't wait to get this last episode out to you guys next week as well. But yeah, let's hop into the IMDb ratings and where this rates on my list. Let's do my list first. So where did this one end up, guys? I shot this one all the way up to third. It was my third favorite episode of the series so far, and man, it was good. I loved this one. The best villain of the series, one of the best characters of the series, man. That guy was, leveled, perplexed, and I bought every bit of his performance. But number 3 for this one, episode 3, still sitting at 1. Episode 5 is coming in at 2nd for me. Episode 1 coming in at 4 now, so getting pushed back from that 3rd slot, with 8 moving up into 3. Episode 6 is coming in at 5. This is the one where he finds Tommy. Episode 7, so our previous episode, coming in at 6 for me. Episode 2, where we lose Tess, at 7. And episode 4, when we first arrive in Kansas City, is sitting at 4 for me. IMDb ratings. Let's see what we got here. I haven't looked yet, guys. If I had to bet, this one's going to be on the high end. And I think it has potential to be the highest rated episode. Let's see. We're scrolling down. When We Are in Need, sitting at a 9.5, guys. And that is indeed tied for first with our 5th episode of the series, Endure and Survive, when we lose Henry and Sam. So, pretty good. I guess in terms of what I said as well, I believe the same thing here. I have the one with Henry and Sam just barely sitting above this one, but this is a close favorite. And honestly, it might end up coming up higher. If I had to look again, it might end up at 2nd. 1, 2, and 3, I think are a bit... 1, 2, 3, and 4 are levels above the rest. I would say 4 falters off just because of the back half of the episode isn't as compelling. But my number 3 episodes, so episode 3, Bill and Frank, episode 5, Henry and Sam, and episode 8 with David. Those top 3 episodes, I think you can intertwine those any which way, and you're not going to be far off the mark. Hopping into our categories, guys. This is where we go through our favorite scenes, our favorite characters, as well as our favorite other themes and things. At the end of it, we see the winner of each category, put them against each other to find our number 1 highlight of the episode. Favorite scenes of the episode, the first of which being that Ellie-David cabin scene. So when things first initially kind of get flipped on Ellie's head, that reveal that, like, hey, I know who you are. Everything happens for a reason. But then also seeing David and we begin questioning what his motivations are. He gives her the medicine. He lets her go. So yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes. The dinner town hall scene. So when we first eat the human being for the first time, and everyone, that feeling of like, oh, I know a secret that everyone in here doesn't know, but contributes so well to the scene when everyone's just clanking, eating the food as fast as they can. The looks that David gives to the daughter, who's about to eat her father, presumably. The part where we see James kind of squeamish about eating it. He takes a second, but, fuck, he's hungry too. He has to eat it. He knows what it is, but damn, he's not going to enjoy it, but he has to eat it. He needs sustenance here. And then that ending scene. So when she is thrown up on the cutting board, chops down James, gets ran after by David, and they have that firefight scene. The 21 chops 21 Savage Ellie. Man, to where Joel finally reunites with Ellie, and not all is well, but all is better than what it was. That's for sure. So what if Joel just never fucking showed up and she was just on her own from then out? God, that would be brutal. At least she finally, or at least gets to see Joel in that last moments there, to be the first one to comfort her following an incredibly traumatic event for her. My favorite scene has to be that ending, but those other ones were really, really strong as well. I like the nuance to them. That's what I mean. This, I think I would even, maybe I moved this one up to first or second, because this one was really well done, and that David character made everything really kind of dangerous and creepy and scary, and I love that tone in The Last of Us here. Favorite characters, we got a lot of them. I guess a lot more of them here. So we get introduced to James. He was good. Shout out to the original Joel. Well played in your part, sir. He was pushing back on David, so maybe there's a good guy in him who got stuck just like Perry did. David, played by Scott Shepard. Well, James, let's give him his name, Troy Baker. Meant to say that there. I guess we have that the mom is a distinguishable character, as well as the little girl. I didn't put them on here, but I guess we could call them somewhat interesting in their roles. Ellie, played by Belly Ramsey. once again, a killer job. She's continuing to prove herself even though she has nothing else left to prove. The emotion, the ranges that she has, so believable, so well done, feels so raw and emotional and great. So really loving her character. And then Joel, didn't get to see a lot from him here, but he seems to be, or is, literally and figuratively back on his feet, and the story will continue on. But my favorite character, guys, of this episode has to be David, played by Scott Shepherd. Take a fucking bow. What a performance. The complexity of his motives, everything about the character, just how you feel it from the very beginning. This guy feels like a creepy ass cult preacher leader, and he is. I mean, even his look, everything about him. He's slightly balding. I can say that. I'm a bald man myself, but he's slightly balding, and there's just this creepy aura about the man, and the looks that he gives, the way he talks, his tone, his dialect, everything about him is so peculiar, bizarre, odd, and just rubs you in the wrong way. But you can believe it. This guy had people following him. He was powerful. He held this figure, this aura, that people naturally followed him, and that made him an incredibly compelling antagonist, villain in this episode here. And one of the best characters, as I said, of the show so far, and easily the best villain. I think he runs laps around Kathleen's character, and maybe that's because he's actually one from the video game, was actually written into this. Kathleen was just a made up one to make the I guess the rebels, or the rebels in that area more, I guess, have more life. But whew, Scott Shepherd as David, what a performance. Favorite character, and I don't think it's close in this one. Ellie, it's great as she was, David sold this one for me, guys. It's that hate that you have for him, that want and desire, that need to, like, oh my God, this guy is terrifying. He is actually terrifying. Great. Well done, The Last of Us. Well done, Scott Shepherd. Not going to see any more of you, brother, but man, you got yours for this one episode. You sure did. Other themes and things. Family, kin, love. Don't get a lot of it in this one, guys. I'm going to be honest, but I guess everything that's driving Joel, he knows that Ellie's missing. This anger that it drove him to, the things that you'll do for love, is I guess how we'll see it through Joel in this one. He kills those people out. He has no fucking sympathy. Morals go to the wall when he's trying to get his girl, and that's going to lead to, that's going to play a part in the decision making that we see going forward as well in this next episode. The gray, a lot of gray in this episode. So as I mentioned, Joel killing those people out when that's just obviously not the right thing to do, and we just see it in a variety of ways. David's character, on paper, or like when you first see him, is a real nice guy, but God, you got to question his being. You see it in even, James. You would believe that he's not fully bad. He's questioning some of David's decision making, and at the end of the day, how much say does he really even have? He's kind of following because he has to survive. So that necessity creates that gray, and that's just the world that we live in here. No flashbacks in this one. Not really any distinguishable music. The setting played a huge part in it as well. So just being this cold, barren place that has driven these people to really dark places because of the scarcity of food. So the setting plays a major role in this. It's an absolutely harsh winter, and these people are becoming more and more, they're animals. David says it himself. He's like, that's kind of the point. We are animals, and that's what they're driven to in this world. Overall, I would say the win for me has to be the gray in this one. I did like that they introduced that aspect, that theme of first introductions came up again. We saw it when Ellie first runs into David and James, and then also in that Joel stand-up, a callback to that first introduction with Marlon and Florence, some goats of the show with their very small role, but really fun one. Didn't get a lot of that in this episode. Not a lot of fun in this episode, so I might have to go back and watch that Marlon and Florence episode just to have a couple laughs after how dark that last one is, guys. But the highlights of the episode, our contenders are the ending. So my favorite scene was the very end down there. killing out 21 chops, 21 savage Ellie. I've said that 3 times now, so not going to say it 21 times. God, that was corny, guys. Anyways, favorite characters, David, Scott Shepherd, and favorite other theme/thing is that gray, so that continuing theme of the gray, not knowing who's good, not knowing who's bad, everyone having their reasons, and some of them being valid reasons. Even it's horrible to say it, eating people, no, never do that. But this is a different individual who thinks differently, and he's just trying to provide for his people and not let them starve. It's his job, it's his role, and how he's going about it is obviously wrong, but he's doing what he thinks is necessary. But yeah, guys, let's rank these. At number 3 will be the gray. So yes, very large part of this continuing theme, but I'm going to have that one come out of the gray for me. Come out of 3 for me. Number 2, it's going to be that ending scene. Whew, what a strong ending scene. What a way to end the episode. So impactful to our characters. So horrible what could have happened. And it gives you all the reason to believe that Ellie would react that way and literally chop this man down that many times out of just pure fear, anger, emotion, rage. Everything that you can imagine is what she's feeling in that moment. And coming at number 1, that leaves one thing, guys, and I'm sure you probably could have given a pretty decent guess to what it was going to be, is David, played by Scott Shepherd. What a great villain. Sold the whole entire bit, made it so much stronger of an episode because he is such a fearful villain. You are terrified of this guy. He's complex. He has his reasons, which I think every good villain does. But at the end of the day, he is, going about it the wrong way. He's on the darker side of the gray, as I would say. He is definitely a demented individual, twisted, sick, and because of that, feels all the more threatening and, terrifying as a villain. And sets up for just an absolutely thrilling, terrifying, horrible, exhilarating story as we watch Ellie, fall into his captivity and, finally breaking away from him. It starts very innocent, very pure. He's like, oh, just become a part of our community. That's all we want. Your friend, that part, we'll have to leave him behind just because he doesn't have a part. If he doesn't attack us, we'll let him go. What do you really have? I don't know. To where she's captive. And he kind of lays that out a little bit more, but then finally it really begins to twist. It's like, no, I want you as my equal. I want you as my, essentially my wife. And that gets really creepy. This is a young girl. This is an old preacher man who's, sick. They're eating people. So there's a whole lot of darkness to this character. And overall, man, just makes this a blast of an episode. This is The Last of Us, guys. Episode 8. Do I move it up to 2? I don't know, because there were some really great really great parts in episode 5. Episode 3 is a different story, so it's hard to kind of even put those in the same realm. But overall, guys, I think those top 3 are bangers of episodes. Some of the greatest television that there is to, some of the greatest things that television has to offer. So what a great episode. Can't wait to the next one, guys. We're going to end on another banger. So super excited. We're going to finish it up on the Purple Podcast, and then everything else TV film related will go forward on the Purple TV and Film Podcast. But yeah, guys, I appreciate you being here with me today. That was an absolutely amazing episode to talk through. Enjoyed it thoroughly. We'll get that out to you later today, guys. But other than that, it's hump day. Have a great rest of your week. I'm going to be heading to Chicago this weekend, so maybe less clips are going to be coming out from this episode, but we'll get some out here and there as well. But anyways, guys, I love you. I appreciate the support. We'll be talking to you soon. We got another episode on Sunday. It's the last one, guys. Brace yourself. It's going to be a doozy. But I'll see you guys soon. We'll be talking on the mic again in a multitude of fashions. Purple Podcast, episode number 44.